Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. Every Monday, Gene Marks and I talk about the issues we think business owners should be monitoring this week. Welcome, Gene.
Hey, Lauren. Great to speak with you. Happy Monday.
Great to be here. Let's dig right in. Gene, I know you like to be a contrarian, but you kind of outdid yourself recently with a piece you wrote that I really enjoyed. You decided to make the case for why Facebook is good.
Yes.
It's an interesting time to do that. Please tell us what you're thinking.
Well, I think it's the right time to do it. And first of all, let me just say, I wrote this in the Washington Times. I said it a couple times in the course of the article. I do not work.
Yeah, you sounded a little defensive about it.
First of all,
I started counting the number of times you said, I'm not being paid by Facebook.
Yes, because that's like the initial reaction. People are, oh, you're just showing for Facebook or whatever. I'm not being paid. I have no relationship with Facebook. I've never, I don't do anything with Facebook. But, all of this, Facebook has done a bunch of horrendous things over the past few years. We all know those stories. So I am not making any excuse or defense of their behavior. But let's all agree that, last week Facebook went down for like the better part of a day. And there were a lot of small businesses that were really screwed because of it, which, it causes us all to remember just how important Facebook is to so many small businesses. There were 3 billion monthly active users on Facebook and 10 million firms of all sizes that advertise on Facebook and millions of small businesses that have pages on Facebook. And when Facebook goes down, these businesses rely on this platform to sell, to advertise, to stay in touch with their communities. And there were countless stories all around the country of small businesses that were suffering because Facebook, went down. So yes, Facebook, it deserves a lot of the shit that it's getting because of its behavior. But at the same time, Lauren, let's also take a step back and say, my God, this platform has really, done a lot for small businesses and continues to do a lot,
Well, that said, do you have clients who use Facebook, and do you encourage them to keep using it or continue to be dependent upon it?
I do. People are like, oh, well, we should have an alternative to Facebook. Well, the fact of the matter is there's no alternative to Facebook right now. If you're on it, you're on it as a platform. Do I think Facebook is going anywhere in the next few years? No, actually the other way around. Zuckerberg is right now planning virtual communities and AI leveraged interactions where you will not only connect to your customers on Facebook, but you will go through virtual meetings with them, like hologram type meetings using VR headsets to do that. They're working on all this, and this stuff is not too far in the future. So I don't say Facebook is an innovative.
Are you talking about the metaverse?
That is the metaverse, which I wrote about on Forbes, a few weeks ago. And that is a real thing. And Facebook is getting a lot of investments, not only from itself, but it's, from other tech companies. That is coming, Lauren. And so I guess my point is that you ask, should we be, getting away from Facebook or finding an alternative? And I'm sure they're going to have their issues. I hope they behave better. But, as a business owner, if you're on Facebook and all in, I'm telling you to stay all in. One final thing, I interviewed, a couple months ago, the guy in charge of small business on Facebook or whatever. And he was telling me their big push is e-commerce. They're going after Amazon. They want to be selling products. They want their businesses to be selling products on their platform. So, I'm still all in with Facebook. I think it's absolutely a great platform for the foreseeable future.
Well, we can all agree it's good to have somebody competing with Amazon, certainly.
Agreed. But it's not just Facebook, but some of the other larger platforms like Twitter, for example, are planning big pushes in e-commerce. So keep an eye out.
Next story. Here's another one you wrote recently that surprised me. In a piece for the Philadelphia Inquirer, you offer suggestions on how small businesses can go global. All good advice. The thing that surprised me is the timing is right now with all that we've been hearing about the supply chain problems or experiencing with the supply chain problems. Is now the time to go global?
Yeah. When we talk about global, let's all agree that, global could mean Canada and and Mexico. I mean, they're very good countries, and they happen to be very close. It doesn't necessarily have to be China. And by the way, there are all sorts of supply chain issues from we hear about ships coming from China because that's our our biggest trading partner besides Canada. But there are obviously plenty of other countries in Europe, Africa, South America that can still be supplying us. And listen,
but they all have supply chain problems too.
do. I mean, but these problems are going to work themselves out over the next year or two, which is actually a great opportunity for small businesses to be right now spending the time to establish partnerships and investigate opportunities. I mean, if you expect your business to be around in more than 2 years, and I certainly hope that you do, now is the time to be thinking about where your supply is going to come from in the future, and also where your customers are going to be in the future. And there are all these organizations, Lauren, that when I did this piece for the Inquirer, it's like, geez, there's the U.S. Commercial Services, which is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, and the World Trade Center in Philadelphia, and there's other locations as well. And states have their own programs, small business development centers, the U.S. Chamber. These people are like offering free services. I mean, partner.
What kinds of services?
Yeah, like matchmaking services, so that if you're like, hey, I'm looking to expand my supply, I want to get materials, for me. Who else in the world makes this that I can be connected to? You got to know one of these organizations, like, again, U.S. Commercial Services is a great one. They will literally assign somebody, a trade representative, to help you source and connect you with that with potential partners, and then give you like a background report, do like research behind them. All that kind of stuff is just, who has the time to do that, and who can pay to do that? All of this stuff is like free and available from these different government and even industry association resources. And I think that now is the time to be looking at it, because there's a lot of disruption going on, and disruption to me means opportunity.
I think there are a lot of business owners. Everybody's overwhelmed. Everybody's working too hard, and they're reluctant to reach out to some of these government related organizations. They just imagine it being a bureaucratic nightmare, and they just don't get around to doing it, even if they are inclined to do it. Do you have any advice about how to get started?
Yeah. The first place that I would go to start, wherever you're located around the country, Google and find a local small business development center. The small business development centers are funded by the SBA. They are staffed with people that are trained to liaise with small businesses to help them get resources they need from the U.S. government. I spoke to this one woman for the article I did. Her name is Blandine Chantapai Carey. She's French. She's been in the U.S. for, a decade. She works at the Small Business Development Center at Temple University. And she was unbelievable. Like, what she knew about procurement opportunities, grants, consulting opportunities, what different government agencies do, you get her in a room for an hour and pepper this woman with questions, she will be able to point you to the right place to be. And there's people like her in various small business development centers all around the country. That's where I recommend that you start.
That is great advice. Next story. The Insider recently reported that the guy who coined the term the Great Resignation is predicting the Great Boomerang, that many employees who went in search of greener pastures are going to come back begging for their old job. What do you think? Do you take that seriously?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that's going to happen. I think right now, everything is supply and demand. Right now, we're in the workers are driving this economy, and they drove it before the pandemic, and then now they're still in the driver's seat. But things are going to change. There's going to be employers will catch up. There'll be other recessions where people are going to be afraid of their jobs going away. A lot of workers might come back to their existing employers. Listen, here's my thoughts on rehiring people, or even hiring people that might have ghosted you or behaved in a bad way. I'm a big believer in second chances, Lauren, and I believe that people should, if you can profit off of somebody, I think that you need to have, what's the word for it? A low level of of burning bridges. So I'm into bringing people back. I wrote a piece just recently for The Hill just this past week about there being the surge in employers hiring ex-felons. Like the Society of Human Resources did like this study that said that like 28% of employers would consider hiring a felon who committed a violent crime in the past, you know? And it makes me laugh because we're in such an environment right now of your woke people complaining about workplace bullying or being offended by something that their colleagues said. And now at the same time, we've got all these employers that are looking to bring back felons into their businesses, ex-felons, because there's a big labor shortage. It is a great thing. It is, I think employers should, the fact that they can give opportunities to people that have served their time and coming out of prison, these people can be great employees and great assets to companies. So I guess the boomerang effect, hiring ex-felons, we're looking for workers that can profit our business, and you should be confident that you'll take care of those workers and compensate them fairly as well. But I would not shut the door on anybody who has got some skills and wants to come and work for you, regardless of their behavior in the past.
You're talking about hiring people who have done time. Reminds me, I edited a story at Forbes about actually an Applebee's franchisee who does exactly that, or did exactly that at the time. He had his own brushes with the law and learned some things along the way, and discovered that he could hire great employees that way by giving people a second chance. And we asked him, well, how do you determine if they're ready to really be great employees? And his answer was, he looks them in the eye and asks them to tell me precisely when it was and why you decided you were going to turn your life around. And he said that with the people he hires, almost invariably, the reaction he gets is somebody telling a really convincing, genuine, passionate story, often involving tears, about something that happened. It might involve a child, or something that convinced them that the time had come that they had to do this right.
It's a complicated thing. I mean, first of all, I'm sure the families of the victims of some of these felons wouldn't necessarily be so open to giving these people a second chance. And that's certainly fair enough. There's also a workplace safety thing. I mean, imagine if you hired a felon who had a history of violent crime and he did something, or she did something violent, to another employee. And then they're like, how could you hire this person knowing what their history is? So there's, it's a lot of times it's easier said than done, but every state has got programs. If you Google in your state, or you go to your state's website, where they offer programs to try and move people from the prison system back into the workforce again. So you do get government help. You do get counseling. There is assistance that's out there. And listen, like
tax credits too, right?
You get the work opportunity tax credit will allow you to, you can hire an ex-felon, and the government will give you a credit against your taxes for up to $9,600 just for hiring somebody that served time in prison recently. So, there's a lot of incentives to do that, and we're in a labor shortage, Lauren. So, this is what you got to do, to find workers. So they're out there. They are out there.
Last story I want to highlight is from Fortune. They put the headline on it, "The TikTok Economy." The piece suggests that it's time for geezers like us. Maybe I shouldn't include you. I'm a little older than you are. All right. Geezers like us to start taking the social media channel TikTok seriously. It says brands are embracing it and making millions. Do you buy it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, they've more than 1 billion active users on TikTok, TikTok worldwide. You take it seriously if that's your market. Like, I would never be on TikTok because I'm not selling CRM systems in my company to teenagers. Do you know what I mean? So,
but that's their point. It's not just teenagers anymore. It is teenagers, and I'm certainly not trying to convince you that you should be selling your CRM there. But there are companies and products for grown-ups on TikTok now as well.
The demographics don't skew this way. I mean, Lauren, listen, I speak to industry associations all the time, and you can take a look, go on stage with me and look at the audience. It's a bunch of middle-aged men and women that are out there. I trust me when I tell you they're not on TikTok. That's a given. That's my audience. So again, you got to make sure that you got the demographics down. I will tell you one thing that I think TikTok is, which people sometimes don't realize, and it's the same thing with Instagram as well. Many of those same brands that are trying to sell their products, you'll notice they're also looking for employees. on those platforms. And again, if you're looking for somebody entry level,
that's a great point.
Yeah, okay, maybe you can't sell, but I am always looking for good, talented people in their 20s, for example, for entry level stuff to help me sell or implement the systems that we do. And TikTok is a resource for those people. And so yeah, I would consider the next time I'm looking for somebody, placing some ads on TikTok, because I think I'd be hitting the demographic that would be suitable for my business.
Do you have any clients who, as far as you know, have made an attempt to use TikTok in any way, shape, or form?
I do not, which is why that article was written in Fortune and why you and I are talking about that now, because I think it's all about awareness. So I think the big brands are testing this out. I haven't seen any big brands come back and say like, oh my God, this is going to replace all of our advertising spend. It's the perfect place. They're spending, some are getting, results, but it's too early to tell long term. Smaller companies, which are mostly my clients, family owned businesses, they're not going to do something unless they're sure that their audience is going to be there and it's a sure thing.
One of the first pieces of advice in that piece comes from a marketing VP who made the point, if you're going to use TikTok, don't make ads, make TikToks. Yeah. And I guess if you don't know what that means, you're probably not in the right place.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't post anything personally on TikTok. And I don't post anything on Instagram, although I do follow a number of highly inappropriate accounts on Instagram. And I can't even imagine the type of posting you got to do to attract the audience that's on those platforms. That is not, I would have to hire somebody, a digital marketing person that's probably 13 or 14 years old who can take over my advertising to actually do the right kind of TikTok that would attract potential employees or even customers,
Gene Marks is president of the Marks Group, a consulting firm that advises small businesses, especially about their technology needs. He also hosts his own podcast, Small Biz Ahead, with the Hartford Insurance. You can find it at sba.hartford.com. And if you want to know more about any of these stories we're discussing, read the 21 Hats Morning Report, where we highlight the most important news of the day for business owners 5 days a week. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Lauren. We'll see you next week.
Always great to speak with you. Have a great week, everyone.